our attention gets caught up with what's going on around us. We're lured into socio-political horrors, health horrors, relationship horrors. You can pick any one. Or, better yet, don't. Instead, let's come home to the realm of true reality, which isn't subject to that endless round. Really, it's the most urgent thing. It's why we're here. How else can we respond to the needs of beings in numberless lands? "49th anniversary Sesshin. July 2nd, 2025. In the Shurangama Sutra, the Buddha said to Ananda, "Since time without beginning, all beings, because of the many distortions in their minds, have been creating seeds of karma, which then grow and ripen naturally, like a cluster of fruit on a ruksha tree. Ananda, now you wish to transform your visual, oral, tactile, and mental awareness, together with the other kinds of awareness, into the permanence, bliss, true self, and purity of the thus come one. To accomplish this, you must pull out the root of death and rebirth and rely on that pure and perfect nature that neither comes into being nor ceases to be." The Buddha said, "Extricate one faculty by detaching it from its objects. Redirect that faculty inward so that it can return to what is original and true. Then it will radiate the light of the original understanding. This brilliant light will shine forth and extricate the other 5 faculties until they are completely free." When the Buddha was about to enter parinirvana, Ananda said, weeping, "World-honored one, what shall we do without you? How can we continue?" The Buddha said, "Atadipa." Rinzai told his monks, "What is it that can preach the Dharma and listen to the Dharma? This very you, existing clearly before my eyes, without form, shining alone. Fundamentally, it is one pure radiance. When divided, it becomes 6 harmonious functions. as one mind does not exist to begin with. Wherever you go, you are already emancipated. In the Shobogenzo, Dogen wrote, "You should stop the intellectual practice of pursuing words and learn Eko Hensho, turning the light around and shining back. Mind and body will naturally drop off, and the original face will appear." Today we have the middle day and the middle way. Not too cold, not too hot, just so beautiful. And we have had delicious food every day. But today, slurping noodles, sliding from the first half of Sesshin into the next. So it's been 49 years since this extraordinary place had its formal opening. And Ryoju shared with me something from the New York Times of 50 years ago. It was in the real estate section. Real. And it was called Buddhist Center Rises in Catskills. I hadn't read it since it came out, and I know that the journalist really stayed true to what we told him. So here are some excerpts. John Gleason, the Livingston Manor postmaster, terms the Buddhists choice neighbors. Explaining, they are building something that should stand for centuries. What they are building is a group of 4 interlocking structures that are said to be the first in the Western world, designed expressly for the study and practice of Zen Buddhism. The complex, known as Dai Bosatsu Zendo, is rising on a 1,400-acre site in a remote corner of the Beaverkill Valley. The 3-story, 26,000 square foot structure will serve as a country retreat for the Zen Studies Society, an organization of about 200 laymen that was founded in 1956 to support the work of Dr. D.T. Suzuki, a Zen scholar who was then teaching in the United States. The society also has a city zendo in a remodeled carriage house at 223 East 67th Street. The New York Zendo functions as an entrance gate, says Edo Shimano Roshi, the society's 42-year-old spiritual leader. Those who feel the need for longer periods of intensive Zen practice will come to Dai Bosatsu for a week or a month or even longer. Though it is modeled after classic temples in Kyoto and Kamakura, Japan, that date back as far as the 7th century, the Catskill Zendo was designed by a Western architect, Davis Hammerstrom of Roscoe, New York, and the general contractors were Holloway Associates of Delhi, New York. The building methods were Western, and most of the materials and labor are local. When it is completed, the Zendo is to be completely self-supporting. Operational funds will derive from interest generated by a $300,000 endowment. Funds will also be raised through visitors' room and board fees, $35 a week for members and $50 for non-members, and contributions and selective logging, the production of maple syrup, the sale of members' crafts, and royalties from books. The Sangha, or family of monks and students who live at the monastery, will do most of the maintenance and repair work themselves. Although the monastery legally qualifies for tax-free status, it remains on the local tax rolls. We prefer to participate in this way, explains Shige Roshi. As newcomers to this small village, we would like to establish good public relations. So far, the public relations are fine. Local residents who have been watching the construction for 2 years are at once curious and impressed. The popular view is that next to the home of composer Irving Berlin, the new monastery is the area's most important landmark. What a time that was. We had such idealism and innocence and strong Sangha spirit. We all gave of ourselves unreservedly. Time, effort, skills, money. But it was a different era. Not so focused on financial gain. At the time, my husband, Lou, was teaching at Columbia University and as a junior professor here earned $4,000 a year. I was writing for Art News, and I got paid $4 a review. It wasn't a transactional way of life. And in our practice, it was emphasized. Instead of self-promotion, self-demotion, or maybe self-demolition. However, disturbing conditions lurked, as they often do in paradise. Even with brilliant realization, karmic forces can create distortions in the mind. The three poisons arise, sometimes obviously, but more often in subterranean ways. When these distortions are denied, kept hidden, traumatic eruptions can occur. And then there's a round of suppression, more eruption, stitching over, until finally acknowledgement and change. We recite in the second meal reflection, let us be aware of the quality of our deeds as we receive this meal. And the third reflection, what is most essential is the practice of attention, which helps us cut through greed, anger, and delusion. And we may think we're aware, or we may think we're paying attention. Yet certain inconvenient truths can be ignored, sometimes willfully. So each anniversary session we hold atonement ceremony to acknowledge, purify, and renew our resolve. And you know, it's an ongoing practice. It's what's meant by the word, right? Practice. Yamamoto Genpo Roshi, Genpo Gyu Zenji Daiyosho, Nakagawa Soen Roshi's great teacher, said, the two most important things in Zen Buddhism are insight and virtue. We tend to privilege insight over virtue. Or, I don't know, perhaps in the Soto school it's reversed. But they are inseparable. Yes? Inseparable. We may think, oh, virtue, that's rigid. Or insight, oh, that's unfeeling. The true virtue, seeing directly, coming forth when action is needed, holding fast when it is not. And with the clear discernment of true insight, compassion wells up naturally and is expressed appropriately, not sentimentally. Some of you may know that it was Genpo Roshi who, because of his renown as a deeply realized Zen master, was asked to meet with the Prime Minister when Japan was about to surrender to the United States in August of 1945, ending the war in the Pacific. He was able to offer a way that preserved as much dignity as possible. He said, "We must endure what is hard to endure and persevere in that which is hard to persevere in." And he also advised the Prime Minister that the emperor should not be a political ruler, but rather be viewed as the sun shining in the sky. Genpo Roshi died June 3rd, 1961. But his powerful influence continues. And I'd like to dedicate the rather personal talk that follows to him. In 1961, in late summer of that year, I arrived at Vassar College. It was still a women's college at that point. It had opened its doors 100 years before that, just as the Civil War began. While at Vassar, I continued reading about Zen. Books I found there like Nyogen Senzaki, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, D.T. Suzuki's 3 volumes, Essays in Zen Buddhism. And it was such an exciting time. The early 60s. There were so many breakthroughs in painting, in music, literature, and changing social mores. And I was eager for every possible experience, particularly those that went against the grain of conventional views. A few weeks ago, I went to my 60th Vassar reunion. In 2020, our 55th reunion was canceled for reasons you all know. So at last, 52 of us, 82-year-olds, from the class of 1965 were together. And we held a memorial service for the 91 of our classmates who had passed on. And over the course of several days, we reflected on the national events of those 4 years. Jikyo remembers. Who else? Anybody else remember 61 to 65? You don't have to be embarrassed. You can say yes. Yeah. The freedom rides and anti-war demonstrations that some of us participated in, the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. We didn't think we'd get another year. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. The murder of civil rights voting registration workers, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, Michael Schwerner in Mississippi in 1964. The assassination of Malcolm X during our last semester, and the groundswell of feminism and real change, liberation movements of all sorts. And we also remembered an incident that happened during our sophomore year. President Sarah Gibson Blanding summoned us to the chapel for an all-college convocation. What's this all about? She spoke on virtue. She declared, "Decent girls, Vassar girls, don't have sex before marriage. Anyone who would choose to do so, or even give the appearance of doing so, should withdraw." I don't recall any of us doing that. You know, it was just at the brink of the sexual revolution. So it drew quite an uproar on campus, and it made news headlines all around the world. Those Vassar girls. Even Eleanor Roosevelt had a comment to offer. Freedom is a natural demand of youth, but it does require preparation. Preparation? Patient forbearance? Waiting before we leapt? How about experimentation? Transgression? Adventure? Now, Timothy Leary, whose mantra would become, you probably remember, some of you, turn on, tune in, and drop out. Not the same withdrawal that President Blanding was referring to. Timothy Leary had his commune just a few miles from the Vassar campus. I went there with a friend who had a part-time job babysitting. There were a lot of children there at that commune. And as we stood on the breakfast line, she warned me that the orange juice might be spiked with LSD. You can do anything you want to do as long as you're willing to pay the price, an elderly acquaintance told Diane Benage when she was still a young ballet dancer and was considering going to Japan. She did go. And then she left ballet and went on pilgrimage and was ordained as a Zen nun. She spent some 20 years with Shundo Aoyama Roshi, preeminent teacher in the Soto school, an author of many books, including one I'm sure many of you have read called Zen Seeds, which was translated by Benage Roshi. Willing to pay the price. No price was too high, I felt, for direct experience. And I was yearning for the real deal. In 1967, Lou Nordstrom, whom some of you know, and I were married by Yasutani Roshi and Edo Roshi, then Taison, at the Zen Studies Society's New York Zendo, which was still on the west side in a small apartment. And we began formal Zen practice. Formal Zen practice. You know, Beat Zen, where I started out, had led to what was then being mocked as Square Zen. Centers where Asian teachers were trying to impart centuries-old training to wayward, impulsive, self-absorbed, often drug-addled individualists. So there we were. Somewhat incredulously following the rules. Learning the correct rituals. Submitting to the requirements, exotic as they seemed. But as I continued sitting, I began to experience discipline very differently. What was it? It wasn't about forms. It was just sitting still through whatever pain came. And the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional. I was finally able to begin to face years of rage, anguish, fear, emotions that had been locked away in a titanium vault where my heart was supposed to be. One day, in Sesshin, at Litchfield, Connecticut, the Daughters of Wisdom, where we used to go before we had this place, their retreat center. I was sitting with tears streaming silently down, and Taison, Roshi, Taison was walking with the Keisaku, and he stopped behind me. And with such kindness, "Are you all right?" I nodded, smiling through the tears. I was seeing the karmic effects of my life. And I vowed to break free. But not so fast. The more I looked into the causes, the heavier the weight. Remember that 1969 Beatles song? Boy, you're gonna carry that weight long time. could I put it down? How could I stop? Free myself. Well, you know the answer. Sesshin after sesshin, sitting after sitting. That boulder seemed to get a little smaller, a little lighter. And the walls of the vault started to crumble. I had begun falling apart, as Kimpu said the other day, about this necessary process. I wasn't in control. But falling apart, I found I was held. I was home. Tisarana. And slowly, the anger I was carrying morphed toward forgiveness. It was not something I decided I should do. It started happening. And sometimes I could just be with the pain, not try to go above it or under it or around it, but just melt into it. What was truly revolutionary, against the grain, not believing in my own judgmental mind. What a shock. Seeing the knee-jerk reaction of blaming others, no matter what happened, as it arose. And calling it into question. And doing so, I really could see that the source was in me. Well, every morning we recite the Bodhisattva's vow. If by chance they should turn against us, do it with me, and abuse and persecute us, we should bow down with humble words in the reverent belief that they are the merciful avatars of Buddha, who uses devices to emancipate us from harmful karma that has been produced and accumulated upon ourselves through our own egoistic delusion and attachment throughout the countless cycles of kalpa. Yikes. That's hard. Those who abuse and persecute us, to bow down But something shifts. And we realize we can't change the circumstances of the past or the present, but they're already changing. And we have made them into this oppression that we're still holding on to. And we can change the mind. We can I'm going to change that structure because we can never say this to anyone else, okay? I realized I could move from feeling victimized to finding that koan. He always called himself Master. Yes. Are you awake? Yes. Do not be deceived by others. No, I won't. Just say that. It may take time, but letting go of that sense of having something done to you. For me, it was the only way to heal. And so, with this Bodhisattva's vow, right within adversity, we can be grateful for those avatars, grateful for the Buddha's emancipating devices. Why? They really help a lot. We can get off the hamster wheel. Yesterday, Shige Roshi welcomed us onto another mountain in the Avatamsaka, the Flower Garland Sutra. And in our Dharma study sessions at Hoenji in Syracuse and online, we've been delving into another sutra. Which one? The Shurangama Sutra, which is not so well known in the United States, but has been revered for more than 1,000 years in Mahayana Buddhist countries in Eastern and Southeast Asia. At its heart is an esoteric mantra. What is that? Indeed. Every morning except today. But we'll get back to it. And in Japan, some of us have had the experience of seeing the monks chanting Rogonshu while walking in a stately procession and pausing in between each chapter. It's a beautiful experience. Mantra Can somebody translate? What is mantra?
Mind protection.
Hmm?
Mind protection.
Mind protection. I want to read something about the mantra from that section of the Shurangama Sutra. Be kind enough to take this and do something with it. You can wear it on your head if you wish. So let's see where we are. This is the section called The Powers of the Mantra. And it begins, Ananda, all Buddhas throughout the 10 directions are born from the esoteric lines of this mantra of the white canopy, with its subtle and wonderful phrases and sections spoken by the Buddha seated within the light at the crown of thus come one's head. Conveyed by the power of this mantra of the mind, the thus come ones of the 10 directions, each seated upon a magnificent lotus flower, appear in response to the needs of beings in numberless lands. Right here, in fact. You can fold that. The Chinese master, you can correct my pronunciation, Xuanhua? Shu? Say it loudly. Xuanhua. Whose commentary on this sutra is just so incredible, said, the Shurangama mantra is the king of the kings of mantras. It is extremely important. Students of the Buddha's Dharma who can learn this mantra in their present lives will not have been born as a human in vain. Yes? So, tomorrow morning when we start chanting, I know you will all feel so happy. You know, in the beginning, it's kind of, I can't say those words, it's too complicated. Just feeling it. In the sutra, the Buddha tells Ananda, whom we also met yesterday, since time without beginning, all beings, because of the many distortions in their minds, have been creating seeds of karma, which then grow and ripen naturally like a cluster of fruit on a ruksha tree. Seeds of karma. Can we see that cluster? Do we know even a little bit that our minds have been, are distorted, and that these funhouse mirrors, you know what a funhouse mirror is? It's kind of a mirror on LSD. These funhouse mirrors have been causing us to act in less than helpful ways. Can we take responsibility for our karma instead of just complaining about it? Can we truly agree with Yakujo, not ignoring causation? So freeing. And the sutra starts with a story of Ananda effecting karma. He goes alone on the alms rounds, and that was against protocol. He had no senior monk with him. And guess what happened? Just what Sarah Gibson Blanding warned us Vassar girls about. He was lured into a close encounter with a courtesan, as sex workers were called at that time. And the Buddha knows at once. And from the crown of his head emits a dazzling light from which appears Rogonshu, the Shurangama's mantra. And here we meet Manjushri again, with his sword that cuts into one. The Buddha asks Manjushri to go to Ananda and chant this mantra, and to bring both him and the young woman back with him. And she quickly becomes a devout disciple of the Buddha. With sincere regret, Ananda stands up in the midst of the assembly and says, "The Buddha has bestowed his loving kindness on me as his youngest cousin, but now that I have entered the monastic life, I have continued to presume upon his kindness, and as a result, all I have done is to become learned." As you heard yesterday, he could remember every single word and gesture of the Buddha's teachings, but not from within. All I have done is to become learned, and so I am not yet free of outflows. I was lured into a house of courtesans all because I did not know how to find the realm of true reality. What are outflows? Well, they're all the ways in which our attention gets caught up with what's going on around us. We're lured into socio-political horrors, health horrors, relationship horrors. You can pick any one. Or, better yet, don't. Instead, let's come home to the realm of true reality, which isn't subject to that endless round. Really, it's the most urgent thing. It's why we're here. How else can we respond to the needs of beings in numberless lands? Then the Buddha says, Ananda, who's standing in for all of us, now you wish to transform your visual, oral, tactile, and mental awareness, together with the other kinds of awareness, into the permanence, bliss, true self, and purity of the thus come one. To accomplish this, are you ready? You must pull out the root of death and rebirth, and rely on that pure and perfect nature that neither comes into being nor ceases to be. Would you like to transform all these kinds of awareness that come from the outflows of your conditioned mind? Huh? Okay.
Yes, please.
Just don't give them a reality that they don't have. Pull out the root of death and rebirth. Stop reliving the past, even 1 second ago. And rely on that pure and perfect nature that neither comes into being nor ceases to be. The Buddha said, you must decisively let go of everything that has conditioned attributes. Conditioned attributes. Carefully examine the source of your afflictions. Who is it that creates this karma and undergoes retribution? We can ask ourselves that, right? In the midst of, wait a minute. Who is it? The Buddha gave us a method. Extricate one faculty by detaching it from its objects. Because objects don't take their word for things. All things are by their very thing nature untrustworthy. It's very funny when you think about it, where we place our trust. Seemingly solid forms are already crumbling. So let's try it. Let's try this detaching with the faculty of seeing. Extricate this faculty of seeing by detaching it from the things seen. And, he said, redirect that faculty inward so that it can return to what is original and true. We might say, come home to Mu. Just this breath. The Buddha continued, then it will radiate the light of the original understanding. This brilliant light will shine forth and extricate the other 5 faculties until they are completely free. But before we know it, the outflows have lured us back into attaching to this or that. How vulnerable we are, really. Even with years of consistent practice, the conditioned mind is what we're conditioned to. Yes? That's where we turn. But we can begin to see the moment we're generating new, harmful karma at that very moment. Try it. Right now, what's going on? What's in your mind? At that very moment, we can. When is that moment? Whenever we think that self and other, or self and objects are two. That the objective world is real. That danger is always just a thought away. Just a thought away. Karmic patterns coming in for a landing. And the air traffic control tower is out. Much later, when the Buddha was about to enter parinirvana, tearfully Ananda asked, World 101, what shall we do without you? How can we continue? And you all know the answer. You are the light. Viharata. Rest in this light. And later still, Rinzai asked us, what is it that can preach the Dharma and listen to the Dharma? He said, this very you, existing clearly before my eyes, without form, shining alone. Fundamentally, it is one pure radiance. When divided, it becomes 6 harmonious functions. As one mind does not exist to begin with, wherever you go, you are already emancipated. Let's give Dogen the last word. You should stop the intellectual practice of pursuing words and learn Eko Hensho, turning the light around and shining back. Mind and body will naturally drop off, and the original face will appear. Here you are.